Hello.
How are you?
How's it going? Hello?
I had a lot of noise, but now it's better.
Yeah, sorry. My stupid headset always doesn't work until I unplug it and plug it back in again.
I see. Okay. How are you?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm fine.
It's good.
Just trying to read through the agenda because I just needed to take care of a deployment incident.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. Is this the DB migration timing now?
Yeah, exactly. And just wondering now that we have as a topic to track deployment blockers, if we should label incidents in some certain way to make it easier to track deployment blockers, or I labeled it as deployment blocker, I think, because there was such a label already.
I was going to say, yeah, there is a label. Don't worry too much about the label. Let me see that. What was that called? So there is a. So there's a type of incidents. It's called something like incident type. Let me find out. So there's an incident type of deployment related, but don't worry too much about that. The reason for that is we don't actually have millions of them. So it's not a huge pain when I add them, but also I'm thinking about it a little bit because in a way it captures two types of incidents, because it captures things like this where deployments are blocked because of an incident. But it also captures incidents that were caused by a deployment, which is slightly different. But at the moment, the numbers aren't big enough for it to be too problematic. So when I bother to analyze things, it's not a huge problem to sort them through. But that's, so at the moment, actually, this is a fully manual process.
And so, sorry, just to clarify, this is anything that turned out to block a deployment. So this is
that's it.
As you mentioned, and not tracking though this was an incident caused by a deployment. We're just tracking the first way first.
That's the main one we are tracking on. It doesn't, if you do add it and it's the other one, that's also fine. But the one that we tend to less consistently track, and the one that we is quite important is the first one. Yeah, the deployments are blocked, and the reason it is incident worthy is because at that stage we can't deploy anything. So if GitLab goes down and we need to deploy a fix, we actually can't at that stage, which is why it kind of gets classified as an incident.
For the label incident type deployment related, is this more meant as caused by a deployment, or meant as a deployment was impacted by something?
It's sort of both.
Both.
Yeah, that's what I kind of, at the moment, as I say, we don't really analyze this data as thoroughly as we should. So I haven't yet committed to which one. Like I don't know whether it matters that they kind of is the both. Anything I think that we raise in delivery, I tend to put it on just so that I can filter on them.
Okay.
Yeah, usually we don't use it for, so let's say we deploy something that is broken, but it gets spot 2 hours after the deployment, then it doesn't get the deployment related. It just get the attribution to the piece of software that was broken. But if, let's say, it happens during a deployment or it prevents a deployment to be executed, then usually we put that label.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. Yeah. But don't worry too much about that one. I tend to stick it on and then I filter by them. So, so everyone, welcome to the first of our APAC EMEA delivery weekly. So just welcome particularly to Graham, as this is your first one. So at the moment, we've got these in every 2 weeks at this time. Very happy to review that, and see how we go, right? Like particularly Graham, I know it's evening time for you. Then I will use the same agenda so that we get overlap with the EMEA Americas one, and then it's a little bit easier for people to sort of see things. So what I'll do is I'll copy up down the template on I usually do it on a Monday for the EMEA Americas. I'll do it on Tuesday for APAC EMEA. Feel free to add anything you want to the announcements or the discussion. And it doesn't have to be, it won't be that the two meetings are the same, they are recorded so people can catch up on those things. So it'll just be whatever sort of current stuff we have at the meeting time. It's also a social call, so it's not intended to be all the updates and things like that. So usually we have some announcements, there's maybe a bit of discussion, but then we use the bulk of the time to just find out what we've been up to and share whatever you like with each other. So I haven't got an MTTP. I usually put the image in. I haven't got an image because there's no data for May. So I'll follow up on where the MTTP data is for May. I haven't got any announcements in, but just on discussion, it doesn't necessarily have to be so much discussion, but just to give a little bit more visibility. So Marion and I have been tracking deployment blockers over the last few weeks. We want to, it's kind of in relation to MTTP moving from 12 hours up to 24 hours. And then we now have to make a decision like when's the right time to drop it back down to 12 hours. So we're still getting a decent amount of disruption. Last week we had quite a number of incidents all on the same day pretty much, which was disruptive. But then also just to share, like I create a follow-up issue, which was to look at, there are definitely some patterns we see around pipelines failing. The first one of the day fails the most. And I think this is, I've shared with a few of, I think my theory is for this one is it's most likely that a lot of things get committed at the end of the Americas day, which is when just a lot of people are working. It just happens the next pipeline we run is this one. But Kyle is helping us with that one. There definitely are flaky tests impacting us, and also master fails quite a lot, which will impact us as well. So we're trying to narrow down on those things. And then last week I attended the quality staff meeting, and that was kind of to chat about deployment blockers, but also some of these flaky tests and things. It's quite a lot of things we don't have a good way of handling. Like we don't have a good way of handling quarantining flaky tests quickly. It's hard to, if someone does fail the QA tests and they've done it with like a front end change, like a UI change, often the tests running on staging are the first time those tests have run. So it's not surprising they fail. But then because we have to run the full suite, that's a 2 to 3 hour test suite, which is why it then takes so long to recover. So quality are looking into that. They're putting together some stuff to try and get it so that those UI tests can run on MRs. So we catch it earlier. And also they're looking into ways that that whole package and QA job might be faster. So whether there's tests to take out a bit or things like that. So hopefully we'll start to sort of get some focus on reducing the overhead of those things. This is just one aspect. So the other one that came out is that database migrations have been a big focus over the last few months, but there may be other things as well. So as we go through, and like this is kind of why raising incidents and having that tracking is super important, just so that we can actually start to spot patterns and be like, these sorts of changes have caused 3 incidents over the last few months, and here are the numbers, and we can pull people into that stuff. Awesome. Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that on the last incident, when we had QA failures, it was interesting to see that the QA people, at least the one who was helping out in this case, are very good informed on how to deal with that, like finding the MR which is causing this, right? And trying to figure out who's the developer who could work on this, and also the workflow on, picking the right label for the revert MR, for instance. While the developers who really needed to fix this in this case didn't know the workflow really. And I also needed to look it up because I'm not very often, had to look for the right labels for MRs and stuff like that. And also the dev escalation engineer was for the first time in dev escalation and also didn't know what to do. So it was funny that we needed to guide them through all of this, but it was really nice to see that the QA people are very good in helping out on these cases, at least in this case, it worked nice. So I think working together with QA is very helpful. So I like this relationship if it works out.
Yeah, I think that QA, since they started having the rotation, to be on call, they really improved because now they have knowledge of how to handle this thing. So probably the biggest part is the engaging with them. So the the incident, I think it was Friday, right? So we were, or if not Friday, I mean, it was last week.
Yeah.
No, because Friday you were not working, so it was before Friday. So the problem that I saw there is that it happened overnight for EMEA. So for EMEA was overnight. And basically the engagement started around 9 a.m., right? So it took 4 hours before we started handling that, plus everything, pipelines, fixing it, finding dev escalation, and etc. So it took, basically gave us a blackout window of half a day, even more. Yeah, 12 hours, yeah, more or less 12 hours. So it's kind
If you look at how long it takes to create the MR and then pick it into auto deploy, we could have saved a lot of time if that would have been escalated earlier, even without us, right? I mean, that could have been caught by QA already and then handled by QA also, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think they don't have APAC coverage, so that's probably the same situation that we are, right? So if it happens overnight, basically everything is shifted to EMEA morning. If they had APAC coverage, probably by the time we were online, we would have already been fixed. Maybe we had to retry. No, maybe we will have to retry the deployment because the environment gets locked. Okay, but at least it was just a matter of retrying a job, setting a variable instead of waiting for the fix and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between the tests failing and people fully knowing what this means in terms of like stuff's blocked. So I think they do start looking because they know the test has failed. They often do start looking, but I don't think they necessarily know the urgency of getting the MR prepared and picked until everyone comes online. So there are a few extra bits we can tighten up there as well. And then Graham, once we get you trained up, this will be a really good one. Like it's a great example of one where it's pretty low touch from our side, but being able to like kick off that process a little bit earlier will save us quite a lot of time, assuming there are APAC people. I think this is the thing which is untested, is actually we've never tried to kick it off early. So like this one that we had this morning with the migration failing, it would have actually been quite, I don't actually know what APAC cover we have for those sorts of failures. We'll find out.
Yeah, I'm not even sure myself, actually. It would be interesting to see.
So, I mean, luckily we're starting from like absolute worst cases. It then has to wait for EMEA time, right? Like, which is kind of our current situation. So we can test that out. But yeah, there's some, the developer dev escalation processes. It's unfortunate there isn't a kind of shadowing period, or it does seem that you get someone random and it's the first time and they kind of expect that the person requesting them understands the full process. And of course, like we often don't. So yeah, there's still improvements going on there, I think, for that one. But always these things, I mean, as we go through Q2, so we have an OKR to create deployment SLO that Myra's DRIing on. And the idea behind that really is to give us a little bit of a separation from MTTP. So the problem with MTTP is it tracks deployment frequency, but also it tracks like how many release managers are online, how many times did you press the button, and how long was the pipeline, and how many incidents did you get held up by. It's quite a like involved metric. So deployment SLO will give us just the pipeline. So it will separate away. And if we start to see like deployment SLO is really low, and we know that we have release managers working really hard, and still MTTP is really high, it'll be very easy to point out that it's down to things well outside our control. So we can keep building that case. Because like right now, I think it's going to be hard to get MTTP back below 24, to be honest, which given all the things we're doing and how hard we're working is really like difficult, really.
Talking about the MTTP metric, I was wondering a little bit how many other metrics we have for the deployment process. Like, do we have fine-grained metrics or logs and timestamps for certain parts of running pipelines and things like that?
No, but that will be part of the deployment SLO work.
Yeah.
So it's kind of 3 layers of that. One will be kind of the overall deployment pipeline. The second layer will be like per environment. And then the third layer will be per job per environment, so that we can actually start to see. Because yeah, at the moment, we don't have any visibility really of that stuff.
Do we have something like this in the product? Like, is GitLab measuring these things and control? Okay,
Only
because
jobs.
Not really.
Only
in
jobs.
a previous job, we had a team who were instrumenting. I think we used Jenkins with a fine-grained metrics for every step in any kind of pipelines running there, which was great because that enabled developers and the whole company to really look at how long does it take to run this kind of container, for instance, and really starting to improve all these timings, which shave out a lot of things.
Indeed, we have in the product, because the CI job have markers. So you can send Hans's string to initiate a marker within the output, and this will start counting time. So 3 years ago, it was only stored in the database, which if we want to get numbers into Periscope can already be enough. But maybe now we are exposing this also as an API.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, we could go down to section of the pipeline level if we want.
Yeah, I mean, because if we track these metrics, you would catch things like, for instance, that certain containers take longer and longer over time to execute because they get bigger and bigger, take more and more time to download, and there you see where performance degrades, where you lose time, and where you could shave out time and things. I think it would be worth for us as a team at least to look into these kind of metrics to optimize our deployments and see where developers also could maybe try to optimize things, because we lose a lot of time here and there. I mean, that would be interesting to look into. Just as an idea, because we were talking about this and I thought about this yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. The one graph that Robert put together did just like trend up and up and up, right? Like it's no surprise that deployments feel long now. So
yeah. Do we have an issue or epic for this? Like,
yep.
Okay.
We certainly do. Let me dig that out.
Cool.
So just link in the epics.
I mean, if we get Jaeger working in production at one point in time when observability is able to work on this again, because they are also under stuff, that would also be a great tool for profiling these kind of things. They could really get traces of the whole job pipeline and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And or even multiple pipelines together. I mean, if you just put in the right span IDs and things, that would also be great to have. So a lot of ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
Think about it. Yeah.
Andrew's also going to help us out on that one as well. So, but yeah, there's the epic. It's got the child issues that have the different layers. So feel free to go ahead, add comments. Some of the comments on defined deployment SLO do have kind of like proposals for how we could track it, what tools we could use and things. So feel free to add thoughts to that.
Thank you.
Nice. Cool. Are there any other discussion points? Nope. Okay, I shall stop the recording.